that says the meeting is now recording. This is the July 26th meeting of the Southside Green Zone Council. And so I didn't know, Kosar, I think you had initially been up for introductions. Did you want to do any intros or icebreaker before we hand it over to our presenters?
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you all for being able to join us on this warm Monday night. Very happy that we did get some rainfall. Like the drought was really serious. I was getting really worried for a while. But I will start off with, my name, my role on the Southside Green Zones, what ward I reside in, as well as whether I guess what is one thing that you're maybe looking forward to as we now embark on the end of the summer? Is there like any vacation plans or activities or anything you have planned for the end of the summer? So I'll start off. My name is Kosar Muhammad. I reside in the Phillips area now, so I've moved again. So that's another conversation. So I moved and I am still a Ward 6 resident. I think if I'm looking at the geography correctly, I need a double check. This is my second time moving during the pandemic, so that's exciting. For my summer plans, I do have a trip planned with my mom to San Diego at the end of August that I'm really excited for. This is her first trip since the pandemic. I've taken a trip out during July 4th weekend to Chicago, so I'm less worried compared to how worried I was before. So I will and I'm a voting member for the Southside Green Zone Council. So I will popcorn it off to Cassie.
Thank you. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember what ward I live in. 6 or 9 or something. One of those two.
9.
9.
9? Okay, it's 9. But my name's Cassie. I live at Little Earth and Ward 9. I'll probably forget that next meeting. What I'm looking forward to is my baby coming home from Texas. Vivi will be going to pick her up like in early August because she'll be starting school in late August. So waiting for her to come home and we're going to go take a weekend camping or something. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And then I'll popcorn it to Mike.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike Samuelson. I am a transportation planner with the Minneapolis Public Works Department. So I'm here to present on a project on traffic safety a little bit later. I'm also a Ward 2 resident, so I live over in Seward, just south of Matthews Park. So not too far away, I think technically outside the green zone, but right around the corner. And in terms of summer, I am going up to the Boundary Waters for the first time in about a month, as long as we don't get any wildfires and whatnot. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not super outdoorsy, so I'm kind of counting on my friends to, make sure I get in and out in one piece. But I'm excited to check it out. So, and I will pass it over to Karen.
Okay, thank you. Karen Clark, Ward 9 down the street from Cassie and across the street from Megan. Let's see, I'm a voting member. And I'm looking forward to going to the wedding of my great nephew in Garrettson, South Dakota soon. And a graduation of another nephew. So there's some family stuff that has been on hold for a while because of COVID. So I'm really looking forward to those things. Did I leave out anything? Oh, okay. Let's see. Megan, I'm going to pass it to you.
Sounds good. I'm Megan Cool-Stennis, she, her. I live in the East Phillips neighborhood in Ward 9, and I'm a voting member. And I am looking forward to, oddly enough, we are doing a big old road trip in December. So I'm not exactly looking forward to December, but I am looking forward. Though on days like today, December sounds lovely. But we are taking a trip down to Texas for my cousin's wedding in Austin, and we're turning it into a road trip. So we're gonna go see Padre Island and some other fun things there. So, I will pass it over to Samara.
Cool. Hi, my name is Samara. I'm a voting member representing Ventura Village, whatever word that is. I remember the questions. I'm distracted by my dog that I just adopted a week ago. His name is Toby. Let me see if I can get him. He's an old man. He's a 13-year-old. I love him. So I'm excited to spend the rest of my summer with him and beyond. Yeah.
Sweet.
Ah, that tongue.
I know. Cutie. Who are you gonna popcorn it to?
Thank you. Let me see. Who's in here?
We've got a couple of guests, Peggy and Dan O.
Cool. Let's do Peggy.
Hey, I don't have my camera turned on right now. I had surgery about 4 weeks ago. I had to have my hip replaced. So I live in Ward 4, and I used to live in Ward 9, on again, off again, both in Powderhorn and in East Phillips. And I've been following what's been going on with the green zones, and I'm trying to participate on the north side. And I was rehired for the state fair. I work in the lost and found there, so I'll be there, and I'm looking forward to maybe being able to ride my bike again this year.
Wow.
So, yes.
Thanks, Peggy.
The other guest,
Dan,
I
are
guess.
you there?
Yeah,
thanks.
yep. This is Dan O. The O stands for Olson, and I am with the MPCA in communications. And I wanted to sit in tonight and just kind of listen to some of that presentation on Abbott Northwestern as we move forward and communicate that project to the various stakeholders and neighborhoods. I just wanted to stay apprised of what people's questions are and that kind of thing. For my summer, what I'm excited about, a year ago, my brother and I bought tickets to see our favorite band Squeeze, and of course it got delayed now until the end of August, but apparently they are going to be performing with Hall & Oates the end of August, so I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see, I'm on my phone, so I can't see names, so anybody who hasn't spoken yet, why don't you go ahead?
Kelly.
Sure, I can go. So, as most of you know, I'm Kelly Molman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in the sustainability office at the city of Minneapolis. I also live in Ward 9 in Phillips West. And I am looking forward at the end of the summer, in mid-September, I am taking 10 days off of work. And it's the first time I am taking more than a 4-day weekend in 2.5 years. So I'm really excited to be away from the office for over a week. No offense to any of you. I love working with you, but I need a break.
Yeah.
So I'll pass it to Jeff, and maybe Jeff, then you can hand it to Sylvie and we'll just go right into the presentations from there.
Hi, my name is Jeff Hedman. This is my first Southside Green Zone meeting I've been to. I'll be presenting, as Dan mentioned, about the Abbott Northwestern project that's proposed at the moment. Let's see, let me think of the question. Excited for the end of the summer. I'm both excited and terrified that my only child, my 5-year-old, is about to start kindergarten, and we've been trying to prep him for that a little bit through COVID because he can't play with his friends nearly as much over the past year and a half. But we also want to help him get ready, and so we've been trying to do a little bit of learning at home, but that's a challenge, as some of you may know. So that's been our summer, both looking forward to it and super scared about it. Oh, and I forgot who I was supposed to turn it over to. Sylvie, was it?
Yes.
Sylvie, are you there and able to introduce yourself? Maybe she stepped away.
I hope she's not talking and on mute.
I'll just, since maybe she's having some technical difficulties, Sylvie's a colleague of mine working in Public Works this summer. And hopefully she'll be able to jump back on in a second and introduce herself better than I can. But she's another Public Works staff person working on the traffic safety project in Phillips. And do you want me to jump in, Kelly, or are there other business things to handle before we start the presentation?
Yeah, unless Kosar and Samara have anything that I've forgotten, I think we're ready for the presentations.
Yeah, go for it.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us here. Really appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you about this this project that we're working on. So again, my name's Mike Samuelson. I'm a transportation planner for Public Works. I use he, him pronouns. I have a brief presentation today, and then afterward, we're going to do a little activity to hopefully sort of prompt some discussion about the project. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Hopefully after a year, I can do that without screwing anything up. All right, so is that coming through? Can somebody just give me a quick thumbs up? You can see
Yep.
it? Great, thanks, Kelly. So the city and Public Works, we've really kind of shifted our focus around our projects from trying to move kind of as many cars as possible and as quickly as possible to really prioritizing safety on our streets and trying to reduce the number of crashes and trying to reduce speeding on our streets. And so some of you might have heard of our Vision Zero program with a goal of eliminating deaths and serious injuries from traffic crashes on our streets by 2027. And so this project is kind of part of that program, that larger initiative by the city. And so we did some analysis of where crashes were happening, and we're really targeting streets where we see the most crashes. And unfortunately, several of those streets are in Phillips. And so this project is focused on 24th, 26th, 28th Street, and parts of Chicago Avenue, which all have a history of just a lot of car crashes. Now I'll just say briefly, there's some streets that are missing here. So streets like Cedar, Franklin, Lake, Park and Portland, those are all county streets. So the city, we work with our partners at the county, but we don't have full control of those streets. So we're just focusing on this project on the streets that we have control over. So you can kind of see the goals here, which I mentioned, reducing car crashes, reducing speeding, and really with the idea that by doing those things, it will be safer and more comfortable for people to travel, whether they're walking, biking, driving, using a mobility device, however they're going about their day. And then I've just got a little bit of information here about schedule. We're really just starting our public engagement right now. And so we expect that to go into next year, and then actual improvements to be built in 2023 and potentially into 2024. And I'll have just a few photos of like some potential ideas of kind of what we're talking about as far as the improvements to help reduce speeding and reduce car crashes. So just a little bit of background here. When we think about our streets and who's being unfortunately hit by cars and being hurt or killed, that it does fall disproportionately on our BIPOC communities, particularly Black residents and Native residents are just very disproportionately impacted by car crashes. So basically what this is showing is that Black residents are 19% of the population, but they account for 26% of traffic deaths, and Native residents are 1% of the city, but they account for 4% of traffic deaths. So, when we think about inequities in our city, traffic deaths and injuries are probably not the thing that rise to the top right now, but from where we sit in public works, it is something that we're working to fix through projects like this. And then just a note about speeding. With our projects, we're really targeting speeding because we know that unfortunately speed kills. And so what this graphic is showing, that if you're crossing the street and you get hit by a car and the car is going 20 miles an hour, you have almost a 90% chance of living. If the car is going twice as fast, if it's going 40, your chance of living decreases to about 25%. So we know that if we can get cars traveling slower, that's going to be safer for everyone involved, but especially people who are walking, who are the most vulnerable. So I just have a couple photos here showing like some of the things that we might look into. We've done these kinds of projects in the past, in fact, in parts of Phillips. So the first is called a bump out. Basically what it does is it kind of extends the curb so it's a little bit shorter for people to cross. So actually the bottom photo is Stewart Park right on 26th here. So these were put in a few years ago. So you can see you get the pedestrian kind of a little bit shorter distance for them to cross, and they don't have to look over the cars here that are parked. So we actually just did a walk last week in both East Phillips and West Phillips with a handful of residents. And we'd be happy to do more of those walks with people on this call if y'all are interested. Just to go out and see the conditions that are out there and hear from you about the kinds of things that you experience as you're traveling around the neighborhood. And one of the things we heard was this issue of not being able to see around parked cars as you're trying to cross the street and how dangerous that can be. So this kind of treatment can help with that. Just a couple more slides here. So a median, this is over north, this is on Emerson Avenue. So again, this is just a way to provide a little bit of protection for someone crossing the street here. It kind of shortens up that space and encourages cars to slow down because the space is a little bit shorter for crossing and the street's a little bit narrower. And then the last photo I have here, this is Plymouth Avenue over north. And this is a protected bikeway with a curb. So I know on 26th and 28th, we had some bikeways that went in a few years ago. I know there's kind of mixed feelings about, if people like those or not. So this is, again, something that we could consider, but I think a big part of what we're here tonight is to hear from y'all as we start this project and hear about, what you want to see, where the parts of these streets where you want us to focus. And so with that, I see Cassandra's got a hand up. I see Sylvie's also here. I just want to let her introduce herself and then we'll turn it over to you, Cassie.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so sorry I was kicked off from the meeting. I don't understand why, but happily I'm back, and I'm Sylvie. I am the Transportation Engagement Fellow with the City of Minneapolis Public Works. And tonight, oh no, I think I will try to answer the question at the beginning. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I look forward to go back to gardening, and because I have been missing that. Yeah, so now maybe who had a question before I start my
I did, Cassie.
Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
just looking at the pictures, and you know how you talk about pedestrians be able to see around cars.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would really like to see cars that wouldn't be able to go around stopped cars, because there's lots of kids who get hit because a car will stop for a pedestrian. and somebody behind them would go around instead of waiting, not realizing what's going on, and that's how we've lost one of our little ones here in the neighborhood. And I've actually almost witnessed it again, like a couple weeks ago. A car trying to go around another car that we had to honk and make stop because there was little kids walking.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's helpful for us to hear. And yeah, unfortunately, I know just what you're talking about. So I think at this point, Sylvie's gonna lead us through a little activity to just sort of prompt some discussion. So I'm gonna just share something in the chat here. Oh, looks like Karen's got a question as well.
Yeah,
Or maybe.
I do. Can I speak, are you saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, Mike and Sylvie, thanks for being here and doing this. I wonder about who decided what the goals of this were in terms of traffic safety, because I have to tell you, and especially since you're at the Southside Green Zone, the traffic safety issues that concern me have to do with the health issues caused by heavy traffic in our area, the air pollution and the lives and deaths of people because of heavy traffic. And so I would ask maybe to add a third goal or fourth goal, maybe even. So you've got reducing speeding and improving the comfort, the safety and comfort for people walking and biking. I would like to see one that says improving the health of the residents that are impacted by heavy traffic. Because we have the streets that you're talking about are part of the problem. They're also, you mentioned other ones that are county highways, and you can just sit in traffic for a while and you're breathing breathing a lot of air pollution. But in addition to that, it's the constant, day by day, by month, or year by year exposure to this heavy traffic that we know is related to some of the very serious health issues in this part of Phillips, especially in East Phillips, the asthma, the cardiovascular disease. So, I mean, people die from that too. So traffic isn't just, getting hit by a car. It's receiving the exhaust of those vehicles. And it's not just cars, it's cars and trucks, and the public works vehicles are part of it. I was so surprised last year to discover that the little panel truck that goes out to look at meters is diesel. My goodness. It was parked in front of my house, and I talked to the folks there, and it was a diesel vehicle. It was a panel truck. It doesn't have to be. And so anyway, I mean, that level of traffic pollution would be something I would just ask you, Mike, and Sylvie, maybe take that back and say that we want to think about more than just getting hit by the vehicle, itself, if you would, please.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And I know some of the larger goals the city has is around reducing the amount of traffic in the city and, encouraging people to use transit and things like that. But I know it's particularly important in Phillips and in the Southside Green Zone. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And now, if there is no more question, I will start a small game for you to get engaged in this project. So please go to, I will share my screen first.
Sylvia, I think I've got it up on the screen there for you.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So if you all want to go on the website, which is on the top of the slide, it's www.menti.com. I can put that in the chat too. And once you are in the chat, I would like you to put the code, which is on the top of the slide as well. It's 298633133, and I will put the code in the chat as well. And if anyone has any difficulty, just let me know, and I will try to help you.
I don't see it in the chat.
In the chat, maybe I don't have access to the chat then.
Did you say it's that www.menti.com?
Correct.
Okay.
Can't get to my.
There was a comment too from Mike at 6:42. I don't know if sometimes it might help to show it, but I used that link to get to the website.
Yeah, thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
If you click that one, hopefully it'll take you right there and you won't have to enter in the code.
Oh, is in the chat?
Yes.
I just copied the code and then I went to that Menti and then pasted it.
Oh,
man.
I can see that some of you have been able to enter already in the website. How many are still trying to figure out?
I haven't gotten in. The Mentimeter is where you went, Cassie?
Yeah, and then I copied that code below before I went there. That way
Yeah,
I paste it in.
I copied it too, but I can't get Mentimeter open up. Oh,
Well, it looks like, I mean, I think this is mostly meant for us to kind of prompt discussion, and looks like someone was able to add some comments. So I'm just curious, you know, translation is definitely important for us, and we do have some staff on board to provide both printed and translated materials. I'm curious the comment on history, if whoever made that kind of wants to elaborate in terms of what they were thinking or what they'd be interested in seeing in terms of how to incorporate history into this project engagement.
Hi, that was me. So for us, like as like the Southside Green Zone, we really do try to honor like the traditions of community members that have resided in areas, to really acknowledge and recognize the Native American community, and also being able to recognize the elders and how they really, you know, form around space, how they mobilize around space, and really recognizing the importance of space. So what is the history of that built environment? What could we envision in the future? And even if it's just a bump out, how does that affect the community in that area, right? How does it affect the youth, the elders, the young adults? So that's why I said history. I think for us, we really do try to acknowledge everyone's backgrounds, people's histories in different neighborhoods, and being able to recognize that, I think, as city workers is essential for any project, and being able to recognize how have previous projects affected a community's infrastructure, its development, how people within that ecosystem also really interact with that space as well. So that's why I said history. So if you can even like provide a historical background to community members during a community engagement session on what a space previously looked like, as that example you had provided, and why the city is encouraging these new changes, that could significantly help, I think, residents, commuters, whatever it may be in the area, business owners alike, to understand why the changes are being recommended and why community input is necessary.
Thank you for going into more detail, though. I think that's really helpful for us to hear. And I see there are a few more things put in. And sorry, Sylvia, I didn't want to step on your toes here. I just saw that and wanted to learn a little bit more. So I'll pass it back over to you.
You're fine. I can see games as well. I don't see any more about my.
Oh yeah, it looks like maybe Karen is.
I can't find it.
Yes, but I'm not able to see the board anymore. Your screen, Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and share back. Sorry, Karen. I'm gonna and just take control just so we can see what
Oh,
what's being
yeah,
shown.
so I can see that some people have put games. And do you, when you say games, do you think of this type of interaction, like the question we are asking now, what does effective community engagement look like, or this type of Menti.com game, or which other type of game were you thinking about?
That was me again. I had added a couple of pieces. So I said games because for a lot of the community engagement sessions that I lead, there are like opportunities for community members to have games, and whether it's like crossword word puzzles or different things that relate to just the engagement activity of, you know, just what are we as a city trying to collect and gather information. If there's a really active way of getting people to participate in that, I think for a lot of folks who are also like, isn't like neurodivergent or something like that. I'm just like starting to learn about it as well. But people have different learning abilities. There might be other activities that might help them engage further with the conversation. So having games or different activities available for folks to provide their community thoughts and just their opinions on what is being proposed might be helpful. So just thinking about all types of learners and just their ability to interact with the information.
Thank you.
So should we go to the next slide, or what are we doing?
Yeah, just
And Karen, were you able to access to the website at all?
no, I mean, I have something that says, what does effective community engagement look like? And with a lot of words, maybe that is the website, but I don't know how to add anything there.
That's fine. You can tell you can tell
So what
us
I would say is early engagement, you know, I mean, before all the decisions are made behind the scenes, and then, you know, so I would say very early engagement.
Perfect. Thank you all.
I agree with that.
Were you saying something, Samara? So who said something? Cassandra?
That was me, Cassie. I
Sorry.
just said I agree with Karen. That's why I put listening, because it's like actually listening without coming in and already telling us what it's going to be.
Thank you for sharing these. And I think we can go to the next slide, to the next question. And the next question is, which intersections or areas should Public Works focus on to improve this traffic safety?
Did we go back to that website?
Yes, please.
You should be able to hopefully use the same link that you were on before. I'll just hopefully update on your phone or computer.
I did have to click to go to next slide at the top of my page, so you might have to, there was a little button that says go to next slide.
Well,
Karen, did you have something you wanted to share?
yeah, since I can't write in here myself, I would say, I know that you mentioned that Franklin is not and Cedar are not within your purview, but I mean, I guess we could still say we want those to be part of it, right? I mean, even though, so the county should listen to us on that, I guess, if they're county, because boy, Cedar and Franklin Avenue are just so difficult, especially where they intersect with the freeway entrances. It's very dangerous for our pedestrian.
Thank you, Karen. And to emphasize your thought as well, someone put 24th and Cedar. I think it's on the project, Mike.
Yeah, okay.
And as folks are just answering this in, I'll just mention Sylvia and I are also planning to be at the National Night Out Barbecue, which is a week from tomorrow. I believe it's at Cedarfield Park. So if anyone is there, hopefully we'll see you and can stop by and meet in a way that's, COVID safe for everyone. But yeah, hopefully this will be the first of many conversations.
And please bring your kids, your family members, or friends, neighbors. And I can see as well that you want more focus on 25th and Chicago, 27th and Cedar. Yes.
Did I write that? Oh, I did write it. Okay.
Cedar again. So Mike, are you taking note? 27th and Cedar, Hiawatha, and 28th and 26th, 27 and Cedar, 27.
I put it on there twice because I didn't think I did. The Hiawatha ones are mine, and the Cedar.
That's fine. Thank you. And Cedar Avenue again, and the 3rd Street, West Bank. The walking light is very slow to change, and cars drive fairly fast in this area.
Yeah, that was me. I went to the Humphrey and I went to the U, and I would walk from the Cedar Riverside neighborhood often, and no one stops for you in that area. Like, you are fearing for your life all the time. The walking light is very slow and very short. I don't know if this is outside of your, like, both of your geographies to manage, but if there could be an opportunity to maybe revisit that walk area, that would be really helpful, because it's just very unsafe, especially if you're trying to take the green light or coming back from the green light.
Yeah, I'll just say, I know that intersection pretty well, and that's not very comfortable or safe. For areas, if we get other comments about streets that are outside of the ones that we're looking at, we'll take those back to folks. It might just mean there's a different avenue for addressing it. But certainly we can definitely receive comments about other streets, even though we're focusing on just a small subset. And I'm curious, I think Cassie, you were saying 27th and Cedar was a priority for you. Maybe you could just kind of share a little bit more about what you don't like there, or what you'd like to see.
Well, it's one of the main areas that we have a lot of well, it's not the main, because 26th and 28th are, but Cedar's like with the big trucks traffic, and it's really hard to see around the cars too. There's no stop sign, there's no pedestrian walkway, there's nothing there. So you really have to walk a block down either end to be able to cross at a light, and people just don't slow down at all. And it's scary because people are always trying to, like, driving, like, try to get across or go left, or to make that left-hand turn. Even a right-hand turn is hard, and it's like super always busy, and people go down there like 40 miles an hour if there ain't traffic. And so, like, it's just scary as hell.
Yeah, that was an intersection when we were walking around with the folks on Saturday that a lot of people mentioned as well. So it seems to be one to hone in on, even if it is a county street, to kind of try and prioritize with some of our colleagues over there.
Well, it's just we have so many kids here in East Phillips. Little Earth alone, there's over 500 kids, I believe, and half of them used to be, I think, a couple years ago, under the age of, what was it, 5 or something. So we just have so many kids on this Cedar Street, and they don't even stop for our light here at Little Earth. I watch people all the time cut through that. I wish they'd put a camera on there. They do it all the time, even with adults standing there. They'll just try to beat the light, or they act like they don't see it and they just go. And we've had a couple kids hit this in the last month. It wasn't serious. It could have been. So I really wish that people would put signs up like, you run this red light, your picture will be taken, or something. Your license plate will be taken.
Hey, Cassandra, is that the walkway near the bridge, like the bridge that connects the park and the residence?
It connects the little side of Little Earth to the bigger side of Little Earth.
Yes, I hate that intersection. It's probably the worst.
Yeah, with the lights there, it's crazy.
No, it's so disrespectful as well. Like kids will be riding their bikes or someone, you
Yep.
know, who has a stroller and like people will literally try to run them over. And sometimes you also have semi trucks who will be trying to move through that area when 35 is closed.
Yep. And you're absolutely right. People do it purposely. That's why I said that, like,
They do all the
Yep.
time, all the
yeah,
time. And
yeah. We've
they
had a
throw
lady who just hit a kid
kids.
on the bike and tried to run, but it was all the other people that were there that surrounded her car. So the cops came.
Yeah, it's very unsafe. Very
So
unsafe.
unsafe. And it has a light there, so that's what's even scarier. There's no regard at all.
They don't care about the light at all, like at all. Like people will cut through reds or not. It doesn't matter, especially during peak traffic time. Like there's no break in between for people to walk. And then also that turn on, is it 26? Like when you're right near the chicken shop, like, you know, the grocer, like right when you're gonna take, like, let's say a right, and then you're trying to head over towards like if you want to head towards like Park Avenue and like
on the 26th there when you're taking a right on the one way.
Yeah, that intersection's also a problem. Like people never stop for walkers.
No, on 24th and Cedar too, because you have people coming out of Little Earth, and if they have to go straight going on 24th, people who are coming like I guess you want to say eastbound on 26 on to Cedar, they're gonna take that left with no regard for people coming out of Little Earth, and the people who are coming off the bridge to cross to go to like Phillips Park or something. For some reason, cars just think that they have the right of way to turn, because you know it's left or right on Cedar when you get on 24.
Right.
So they feel like they have the right of way over pedestrians or the right of way of traffic. Like, and then you'll see it pile up there. I've seen an accident with my own eyes because I was trying to get through, and a lady was trying to back up to let me through because she, ran, was turned, and even though she's in the middle of the street, she made the light. So when she was trying to back up to let me out, she couldn't. When the light turned green, she forgot to put it in drive and reversed and hit the person behind her.
Oh my God.
So that happens all the time on the 24th and Cedar. Cedar's just a really crazy one.
Yeah. Yeah, Cedar's really tough. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say also the intersection of the Greenway and 28, it's very dangerous there. Bicyclists and folks, and even 27th and Cedar, because people are trying to skip 26th and 24th, and so they turn on 27th off of Cedar, and or if you're on 27th and you're trying to turn, it's just it's difficult for anybody. It's difficult for the cars. It's very hard for the pedestrians.
Thank you so much for sharing all those thoughts. And Mike, can we have the next question?
Would I be able to share one thing really quick? One, I want to echo the 27th and Cedar. I work at Phillips Garden that's right on that corner, and I've seen so many close calls. But also I left a comment. Maybe y'all have already addressed this too, but there's that part of 26th Street that it's a two-way, and then it turns into a one-way right after Cedar Avenue.
Yes.
And so many times I've seen people in what's supposed to be the opposite lane, but they just pull up on the left. And I just feel like that's gonna could cause a lot of accidents.
Yeah.
Accidents and road rage. There is so much road rage when that quick switch happens, because it's a lot of people who may not even be familiar with like Minneapolis roads, who are maybe coming from the suburbs and are just trying to like get to local businesses, but then they might not be familiar with what is happening, and then they get really irritated and then they want to fight you. So like it's a very chaotic experience, especially in the summertime when so many people want to drive, right? Like you see less cars in the winter. But yeah, it's very chaotic.
I mean, can't we just have like no personal vehicles in this area? You have to take transportation.
I think we're certainly looking for ways to reduce definitely like what we call cut through traffic, which is people just traveling through the neighborhood who don't live there, who don't work there, who are like just passing through. You know, they're streets in a neighborhood, they're residential streets. So I think a big part of what we're hoping to do with this project is to, get those people to be, on 94 or on, some of the busier streets, on Lake Street or something like that. And I can't remember now who mentioned it, but with the two-way to one-way issues, that was another thing we heard on our walk at, 26 and Cedar, that's a spot where people are oftentimes on the wrong side of the street, either purposefully or just because they don't realize what's going on.
Yeah, I want to also jump in and highlight something that I heard people say, and I can't remember who it was, but like, especially with like all of the construction happening on 35 and other of those more intentional thoroughfares, traffic just increased so much on Cedar in particular as a north-south. So I don't know, in conversations with the Minnesota Department of Transportation or like how much sway the city has in determining like where cars are rerouted or discouraged from routing to. And I know there's only so much you can do with signage, but just with like the design of the street, I know has so much more to do with how people drive.
Yeah. And hopefully
we can charge people.
That is something the city wants to do for sure.
And then that money can go into our community.
Yeah. I'll just say that I think the construction on 35 is supposed to be ending this year, so hopefully that will give us some temporary relief. But yeah, charging people, especially people who don't live in the city or in the neighborhood, is something that we want to do, and maybe this project will be an opportunity to try that out. Sylvie, do you want to keep going?
The next question is, what does success look like for this project? And I think we lost Karen.
Yeah, hopefully she'll log back on.
It looks like we're getting a few results. Real ways to get cars to slow down. More bikes and walkers. Oops. I'll accidentally share their screen here. I'm just gonna share mine back so folks can see it again. Project goals and results that reflect community need and solution. Local buses who takes community members around the area with special lanes. So I'm curious on those last two. I think the first two are maybe a little bit more straightforward. But in terms of project goals that reflect community needs and solutions, Karen already mentioned some of the goals around health impacts to residents. I'm curious if there are other goals or other things that we need to be thinking about as we move forward with this project. Okay, well, I'll also just say that the nice thing about this activity is we record everything that people have entered and we'll share it back with y'all. And if there are other goals or other like big picture things that we need to consider, please don't hesitate to share them with us. And anything else here that folks want to elaborate on, or any questions of things that have been submitted by your fellow members that you want to learn more about?
I have a question for some of the members on the call, and I don't know if this is like Cassie or Megan or others. I know over the last several months since the uprisings, there have been some sort of guerrilla traffic calming measures, and I'm wondering if you've noticed any improvements with those going in, and if you see those as like longer term strategies for kind of those more internal residential areas, and whether you think those could be strategies that could be expanded to other streets.
What is that? I didn't understand that. Would you say the gorilla what?
Oh, yeah, just
I
the resident laid speed bumps and barriers.
Which have all been taken up. But yeah, they definitely slowed traffic down for sure. Yeah, I think when we were talking a little bit about 26 too before, I think it has been really a challenge, I think, for us to get used to the one-ways on 18th and 17th and 16th, and people going the wrong way. And so, yeah, like I want bump outs on all of them. I want a mid-street bump out, but yeah, I think we need real ways for people to slow down regardless. I do struggle a lot with the speed of things. So yeah, I think speed bumps or other traffic calming is really, really necessary for sure. Because yeah, they certainly made a difference in slowing people down. So it was really too bad to see them taken away.
So are you talking about, so I still see some of the stuff up, like the one ways, they have the cement right in the corner of some of them. For me, are you talking about more like the 18th when we blocked our own streets off up here in Little Earth and then the community blocked their own off? That was helpful because people were trying to get away and they had to stop and back up. So they stopped using that street. But I thought you meant with, I don't see as much of it anymore, but I see people who drive more aggressively lately. They don't really abide by the laws. They don't abide by moral obligation to be a community member when it comes to the safety of our children, because I see them flying down these streets with no license plates, driving however they want, running red lights. I've seen that, like people running red lights all around me, and I'm the only car sitting there waiting at the light, even over North Side. So, but I see it here in South Minneapolis too. And like, there's people, like I'll sit in front of them on 18th when I come into Little Earth. It's a one-way when you turn on 26th onto 18th, and down that stretch there from 24th to 25th. And people will drive down the one way, and I'll just sit there until they turn around, because our kids only look one way because they know it's a one way, and they're not looking the other direction. And then we have 3 parks, one on 24th, and we have Phillips, we have Cedar Field, and then we have the Baby Space Park right there, and kids running across the streets to get to them. But I've seen lately, like, people just no license plate, running red lights, driving reckless, just not giving a crap about anything.
And I think exactly what you were talking about earlier, Cassie, around someone will stop for someone to cross the street. And because it's a one way and you can kind of get around people, that they think they can just go, yeah. Oh, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see that happening. So it's very scary.
I was honking, and I almost opened my door because there was a car going around and there was a kid running in the street, and the car behind me couldn't see that kid. So I was like, I was honking and screaming, like, stop, oh my God, what are you doing? This kid is, they finally stopped, but it could have been late if I didn't, if other people were reacting too. That was scary. That kid could have got hit.
They used to have that same problem at the Midtown Greenway crossing until they re-engineered that. People were always going around on the other side and hitting bikers and stuff.
Darren, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was kicked off there for a while, so I got back in again. I don't know what happened. So if it's answering the question, what does success look like for this project? Is that right, what we're talking about? I just wanted to go back to an expanded goal that I wanted. So then one of the things that success would look like would be cleaner air, less air pollution. So that's what the goal added of, you know, less traffic.
Great.
Well, with that, I think we are done with our presentation tonight, but we will follow up with us on email. And thank you so much for all of you, because it was a great conversation.
Yes, thanks very much.
Thank you guys for coming and presenting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Well, do we want to just go ahead to the next presentation, the Abbott one? Cool. Yeah, I forgot exactly who is presenting on that, but go ahead and take it away.
Hi, my name is Jeff Hedman. I'm with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I'm a permit engineer. Again, for the pollution agency, tasked with looking at the details for the application materials that have been submitted for this particular project. Let me see if I can get my presentation up here. All right, how are we doing? Anything on
Looks
screen,
good.
hopefully?
We can see it. I can see it.
Great. And I'll be presenting today with my colleague, Dr. Monica Vidali, specializing in risk assessment. So what I'm here to talk about today is a proposed project, still in the draft stages, for Abbott Northwestern Hospital. Abbott Northwestern has a utility plant at their existing site, and they have an array of boilers and emergency engine sets, and they're coming on age. They're getting pretty old. Some of them were built in, I believe, the 50s, and so they reached their end of useful life, and Abbott would like to replace them. And so one of the ways that they are contemplating replacing them is through the removal of some of these older units. Again, as you can see on the slide here, there's about 8 older units and 9 older emergency engine generator sets. And they would like to add 2 larger boilers, so fewer in number but larger in size, and a turbine with a heat recovery steam generator, which is a heat recovery steam generator is a device that is it's sort of like an add-on device, if you will, for the turbine that can be used to get extra energy, extra useful work out of the gas that exits the turbine. In addition to those items, they've also got a few new emergency engine generator sets that they'd like to add as well. Somewhat similar story to the boilers. They're proposing fewer in number than what they originally had, but generally larger in size, and a cooling tower to support the turbine as well. And for this proposed project, there's a period of overlap where they'd have both some of their new units and some of their older units operating under a similar time frame, because again, the needs of a hospital are 24/7. They need to supply both heat and power to their various buildings continuously. And so they need to ensure they've got a successful, smooth transition from their older units to their newer units while still having both heat and power. So this is just a snapshot of the current facility with their stack, the main stack that they use, again, roughly 26th in Chicago, give or take. And this is their proposed facility. Again, roughly the same street corner. You can see that stack kind of in the background, rear right. And then towards that white one, towards the center of the screen would be one of their new ones. This slide is a little bit busy. I'll acknowledge that, but I'd like to talk you through it. So for this particular project, there is an array of pollutants, as there would be for any combustion process. The main pollutants, or excuse me, fuels that this particular project will utilize are natural gas. And in the event that natural gas gets curtailed, meaning it's restricted from the facility for some reason, like if there's a cold snap or a pipe break, they still would have the need to supply heat and power to their facility, so they have a backup fuel, which is number 2, fuel oil, which they currently have and use both of today. One of the new things about this project that I'll mention is that Abbott has further proposed to restrict their use of fuel oil from what they have access to today. Essentially, they can use fuel oil on demand as they need, but one of their future proposed restrictions is to switch that to use only oil in the case of a curtailment situation. So not just any time of the year, but when their primary gas, the natural gas, is curtailed. Without further ado, this particular slide, again, a little bit busy, tries to describe some of the changes that are proposed here relative to what Abbott actually emits over the past few years. So this slide pertains to one particular pollutant. There are many pollutants involved, but this one is an important one called NOx, or nitrogen oxides. And again, I'll try to talk you through the slide. The graph along the left-hand side goes from 0 at the bottom all the way to 100 at the top, 100 being an important number for us in permitting, and that meaning that for the particular kind of permit that this facility has, no facility could emit more than 100 tons. Again, this particular facility has what's known as a state operating permit. So again, could not ever emit more than 100 tons, not allowed. This particular facility, as it stands today, Abbott's potential emissions, and again, I'll describe what potential means, is that we would consider the operation of all equipment, all boilers, all engines operating at the same time, which is not a realistic scenario, but is still the ruler, if you will, that the MPCA uses to measure different facilities, what the maximum allowable emissions would be. And those are tabulated together for the entire facility and represented with a number. In this case, happens to be 91.64. Again, that's the current facility as permitted today. It's the blue bar on the far left. The lighter blue bar next to it represents that transition period that might happen in the future should they go ahead and do this particular project. You'll notice it's a slightly lower bar. This number, again, takes into account the maximum allowable emissions from all the equipment. As you may recall, I mentioned they're going to have a transition period where they'll use both old and new equipment. And you might think, well, that would result in a greater amount of emissions. In this case, for the purposes of the transition period, Abbott has proposed some caps to constrain those emissions for the purpose of the transition itself. And they set the value of those caps at the final state, or what they believe their final state might be should they actually construct these new units that I mentioned a few moments ago at the same value, again, 89.87. So slightly less than what they're currently maximum permitted. And I'll touch a little bit later on how we might actually see a drop in actual emissions. The next 5 bars that I've listed are a tabulation of the actual emissions from Abbott over the past 5 years. That sort of brown reddish bar representing the year 2015, again at roughly 18 tons. Proceeding to the right is the next year, 2016, slightly less at 17 tons. Then again, proceeding in time to 19, 19, and 18. And I put these pieces of information on this slide to draw your attention to the fact that historically their actual emissions have been relatively steady, and they're much less than their maximum allowables. Again, being that this is a hospital and they have backup fuels, those worst case scenarios, if you will, are tabulated into that potential emission number, or rather those higher bars on the left-hand side. And with this proposed project, Abbott believes that their campus will have the same steam and heating demands as they do today. They'll just power them with newer equipment. So for that reason, they believe their actual fuel usage will remain relatively steady. And as I'll show you in a couple slides, one of the benefits of will be an emission reduction for this particular pollutant NOx. And I'll show that through a somewhat messy slide that has to do with emission factors, but I'll try to walk you through that one too. So this, again, particular slide is about one pollutant called nitrogen oxides. I'm going to advance. It's a very similar looking slide for a different pollutant. this one called PM 2.5. And the y-axis on the left-hand side goes from the same range, 0 to 100. Again, 100 selected because that's the most that could ever be emitted by a facility that has this kind of permit. In Abbott's case, their current potential emissions on the far left are roughly a little over 5 tons, 5.25 tons. For the purposes of the transition period, that will increase some, well, increase to 15.16, again, roughly 10 tons. And once they have produced their facility, should they actually go forward with and receive permission to do so, their expected emissions, or rather their maximum allowable emissions, would be roughly a smidge less than 15, 14.67. And much like the previous slide, I've identified the historical emissions from Abbott. Again, less than a ton in these instances. 0.3 for the first year, again, identified as 2015, then 0.3 again for 2016 and proceeding in time, very similar values. Again, I identified these particular values because I want to point out that their historical lows, or excuse me, historical emissions have been low relative to their potential emissions. And again, they believe their steam demands and needs for the facility will be pretty similar. So they're expecting to use a similar amount of fuel going forward. This particular slide attempts to describe the impact of those emissions. And so there's 2 bars for each pollutant. On the left-hand side, there's the pollutant that I mentioned in the first slide, which is nitrogen oxides, described here as the 1-hour NOx standard. This is an ambient standard that applies to all states, including Minnesota. And an analysis was done for the previous project, done roughly in 2013, where Abbott did a similar cumulative levels and effects analysis. And at that time, I'll draw attention to the blue bar, our computer dispersion model considered the effects of Abbott's project at that time, along with the nearby sources at that time, and the background concentration at that time. And those values tabulated together were roughly 86% of an ambient standard, which is considered compliance in the air permitting world. The green bar next to it, again, represents some similar ideas. They're the contribution from Abbott, as it would be proposed, the nearby sources that are near Abbott, and today's background concentration. And those values together tabulate to roughly a very similar value, but an increase at 87%. Again, suggesting compliance with the ambient air standard for nitrogen oxides. The next set, the adjacent set, is for PM 2.5. I again showed some PM 2.5 numbers in the previous graph. The blue bar for PM 2.5 was tabulated again in the prior project that was done in 2013. And again, Abbott's contribution was considered along with nearby sources and background at that time. And that time it came fairly close to the ambient standard, but still considered compliance at 97%. The proposed project that's in front of us today, and we're still considering, has a lesser value of 78%. There's a larger margin of compliance with the ambient air standard from the proposed project, nearby sources as they exist today, and the background concentration as they exist today. So this is kind of that difficult to understand slide that I mentioned earlier, which describes in some kind of nuance why I think there actually will be some emission reductions on a day-to-day basis for one of the risk drivers, or rather for the risk driver for this particular facility. I'll draw your attention first to the column headings. What this is a set of what are known as emission factors. These are values that the agency uses to translate the amount of, in this case, fuel used or heat input into the amount of pollution. So again, it's a way of converting from one thing into another. And the top row would be a set of emission factors for the pollutant PM 2.5, the fuel gas. And then the middle column would show the emission factor for the boilers that exist on site today. And the next column over is the emission factor for those boilers that Abbott is proposing to use. And I have a comparison in the final column, simply considering which of these two values is greater. And it turns out for PM 2.5 for gas, the existing boiler's emission factor is actually less. It's a different story, though, for the pollutant NOx, which is the third row from the top. I explicitly knocks on using gas, natural gas in this instance. The old the emission factor for the boilers that are on site today is a much greater value than the proposed boiler's emission factor. It's roughly 2.5 times bigger than the proposed boilers. Or phrased another way, the proposed boilers are 1/3 of the current emissions. So another way to state this idea is that for any gallon or specific amount of fuel that you put into today's boilers, you're going to get out roughly 2.5 times more pollution than the proposed boilers. So the proposed ones being much cleaner for this particular pollutant, NOx. And if we also believe that Abbott's heating needs are going to remain pretty consistent from the current state to the future state, that would lead us to believe that the emissions of NOx will go down. Again, if you put the same amount of heat into the newer boiler, rather proposed boiler, in comparison to the existing boilers, you're going to get a lot less NOx. And for this particular facility and area, nitrogen oxides is the risk driver. It's one of the pollutants we would like to see drop the most. And in this case, it is by a significant amount from a day-to-day basis. Again, based on the same amount of fuel that would go into the boilers today versus a proposed boiler, the proposed ones would have a significantly less. So this is one of the reasons why I think that the proposed boilers will allow us to see an emission reduction in this particular area. The existing facility was analyzed in 2013, was shown to be below ambient standards and below the health risk guidance levels. And based on the application materials we have today, we believe the same will be true. Again, I want to emphasize that this project is still in the draft stage. We're still analyzing it. And I've tried to put that sort of work in progress disclaimer on most of these slides with numbers to suggest that these are not the absolutes, these are not the finals, and they're still being considered. I'd like to talk about process just a little bit. I've drawn a small map here to describe how this process is set up. We're kind of at the far left-hand side where we're looking at the cumulative levels and effects analysis. We're looking at permit conditions that have been proposed in the permit application materials, and we're doing some informal outreach. So we're going to various communities where we have been. We've done a little tickler, if you will, like would you like to learn more about Abbott's proposed project? And some communities have reached back out to us and said, you know what, yes, we would. We've also held some office hours where we've had just a standing amount of time where folks could come and ask questions. And we've got a web page built at the moment that has the application materials for the project that we received. So if you'd like to look at those today, you most certainly can. In fact, I'll share a link with you, I think in the next slide, and I'll drop it in chat as well, just describing where those materials are and some short summary of what Abbott's project is all about. When the time comes in the near future, when we think we have a draft permit ready to share, we'll have a formal public meeting where we'll also have a formal comment period as well, where you can write in your comments about the proposed project to us at that time. And once that closes, I should state that we expect that to be about 45 days in length. And after that comment period closes, the agency will respond to comments, evaluate if there are additional permit conditions that are necessary, and then make a permitting decision. Here's a set of tools and some information that you can review at your leisure. We again have a website dedicated to this particular project, available at either of these links. And again, I'll drop these in chat just after the presentation. And there's a Gov Delivery address that you can sign up for and get updates about the particular project. You can email or call me. Again, my contact information is at the first slide and the last slide here. I'll show those in a minute. And we have some fact sheets available in Somali and Spanish. As mentioned before, we'll have a formal public comment period as well, but those details are to be decided. Again, thank you for listening to my short summary of the Abbott's project. I'm happy to receive any questions you may have. Granted, this particular project is in the draft stage at the moment, so I can give the best answer available, but it may not reflect the final state of the facility. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, but I want to see if any of the Greensbend members have some first.
Sure.
Karen, you got your hand up.
See if I can manipulate Teams.
Hey, Karen, you're
Karen,
on
you're
mute.
muted if you're talking.
Now can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I think I understand what you're saying here, and I guess one of the things to know is that this project is governed by the state law passed in 2008 that says that you have to measure the cumulative health impact analysis in order to come up with what's allowed, right?
It is certainly governed by that statute you mentioned. The document may be referring to as the cumulative levels and effects, or CLE, portion of the analysis that does consider health impacts from toxics and cumulative effects of the contributors from the area at large. There's some links to reference documents and describe kind of more what that's about on that website that I mentioned. Again, happy to drop those links in chat. But yes, please.
And if I understood it right, the switch to the different facilities, it looks like a big building you're constructing to do that.
Again, I'm not with Abbott, but yes, that's what
Yeah.
they're proposing.
That they're constructing, yeah. If I understand, the 2.5 particulates will get worse, but the NOx will get better. Is that right?
That is the short take home, yes.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you said is they might need to use this, you called it low-grade petroleum or something. Are you talking about diesel?
It is a form of diesel fuel, yeah, referred
Yeah.
to number 2 fuel, sometimes
Yeah,
called
why don't
number
we
2
just-
fuel oil.
Why don't we just call it diesel, since that's what it is?
Okay.
I've never heard it called low-grade whatever before. Usually, and in the past, I know when Abbott was working on this in the past, they talked about getting a better grade of diesel, and I think that's some of what you're talking about. Well,
Yeah.
I just think it's important for the community to know that there's going to be more particulate matter 2.5 with this proposal. Even though the NOx will get better, our residents are going to suffer from more exposure to PM 2.5. And is there no way to change that, to eliminate that, to make it be better?
So we've pushed the facility a bit on that. The numbers that they've got at the moment surprised us a little bit that there was an increase. They indicated that was the lowest value that they could get as a manufacturer's guarantee for that particular set of boilers.
I want to just say, can't they try harder? I mean, maybe they have to spend more money. It's just, this is, I think Abbott is trying to do something good, but it is not good news for us to hear that there's going to be more particulates in the air as a result of this. Those particulates, those little 2.5, they go deep into our lungs, and the lungs of the people who are right there and live nearby. And actually, I don't know where the plume from that lands. Do you know have they mapped the plume of that increased 2.5?
We certainly have maps. They're sometimes called contour maps. You can think of them as heat maps. To say any one specific area, it's more of a dispersion. But yeah, let me see if I can pull some up, if you'll indulge me for a moment. And if I can get Teams to work.
Do other folks know what I'm talking about? I'm not talking about when you send the stuff up the big chimney, then it comes down somewhere, and where it comes down is on residents, obviously. And I just want to know if that has been part of the analysis by the Pollution Control Agency. Did you look at that? And if you didn't, I think you need to.
We definitely have. And
Okay,
so
good.
let me see if I can pull it up again. Let's see. And then I think I need to share again. Sorry, too many buttons. Let's see. Is there a visual?
We're seeing your slide presentation.
Yeah, there should be a slide that I showed earlier.
Yep.
So I don't think I explicitly mentioned it when I was talking about this slide, but these values, either 86%, 87 for the 1 hour knocks, and then the 97 versus 78%, those are the highest predicted concentrations that are kicked out of this particular dispersion model. It's a regulatory model that we use to evaluate at a lot of points in space what will the exact emissions be. And the single value that's represented here is just the highest value. So again, shown here, 78% after the contribution of both Abbott, the nearby sources, and the background. So I know it's not the map that you had initially asked for, and I can certainly dig for that, again, if you'll indulge me for a few moments.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question about that though?
Yeah.
Is that's based on the potential to
Correct.
emit that
Correct.
78%?
So the maximum allowable emissions. And again, Abbott has historically emitted much less than their
Sure.
maximum allowables, as those two previous bar charts tried to illustrate.
I guess one of my questions is, if you're predicting that this facility will emit less NOx, then
Yep.
why is the NOx going up 1%? And if this facility is going to potentially emit more PM, then why is the PM shown to go down 20%?
Fantastic questions. Let me go back to that slide I just went away from. I think your second question first is pertinent for this particular slide. So the expected or maximum allowable 1 hour NOx emissions are similar, but going up slightly. And again, it's a contribution not just from Abbott's project, but it's these other components as well. And they are all measured against, or excuse me, contributing to this single number. So again, we weigh the background of your local area along with those sources that contribute in your local area, in addition to Abbott's contributions. And those all move somewhat independently of each other. The background values are informed by monitored values. In particular for PM 2.5, there's a monitor just to the east of Abbott at the school, the Anderson School. And the 1 hour NOx values are informed by the near road monitor, which is a little over a mile, I believe, to your north, which picks up a lot of data from the interstate traffic. So the short version, or excuse me, the short takeaway from that is that there are multiple pieces informing this particular number, Abbott's contribution being just part of it. And I'm sorry if you could restate your first question, or if that wasn't sufficient for your second. Oh, I'm happy to.
I think, yeah, no, I think you kind of addressed it. I'm just a little confused at, like, if the background nearby sources are, I mean, there was obviously some sort of assumption that there's going to be a significant change in those if PM is going down, but at Abbott it's predicted to go up.
Yeah, some of this information is discussed. CLE report, let me pull it up real quick. The background for your area, or I should say in the vicinity of the monitor, has dropped significantly since this last analysis was done. Let me see if I can push the right buttons again.
And you said that one, the last study was in 2014?
Roughly 13. Abbott went through this same process a number of years ago, to 2012, 2013 era. And so again, do you have is there a visual up at the moment?
Yeah, there's a table of
Yes.
three chunks.
First, let me scroll up to show you the headings of the table. So this is straight out of the CLE report that you can again find on our website. Happens to be page 18 or so. This is a table of data from our monitors, and one monitor in particular, I should say monitor 963, which happens to be the one that's right next to Abbott at the school. And I'm going to scroll down a bit, but what's good to know is the center column represents a 3-year average of the daily impacts, also known as the 24-hour standard. The column over represents an average of the daily impacts, also known as the annual standard. I'm going to scroll down a bit. Bring you to a rows representing again the era that was last, or this kind of work was last evaluated. It was kind of right here. And what I'm showing is the middle. Background at that time was much higher. It was about 30 micrograms per cubic meter, roughly. And towards the bottom of this table represents what background is roughly today, 2016 to 2018 time period. And it's 10 micrograms less. And the standard in question is 35. So 20 out of 35 versus 30 out of 35. So there's a lot more background available than there was before.
Okay. And yeah, so this data only goes through 2018. I know that there is a lag in a lot of our state data for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
I know last summer we had a presentation from the Pollution Control Agency on air pollutants and COVID, and based on the PM monitor on Anderson, there was actually a spike in particulate matter in Phillips.
Okay.
And so just wondering, like, I'm just particularly concerned that if there's going to be an increase in PM and we're already seeing spikes that are like unaccounted for, we don't know, or we haven't been told necessarily what caused that spike, that I think it is kind of problematic for the community to see an increase in particulate matter.
Sure. And can you offer any other details either now or a future date, like what time frame was associated with that, or maybe who possibly presented it, so I can get a better sense of what data was involved there?
I know Carrie was part of the presentation.
Carrie
There were
Palmer?
several different people
Okay.
from PCA working on it, and the State Health Department. And I want to say it was maybe around June. It was not during the uprisings, but like significantly enough after them that it wasn't the uprisings themselves that caused the spike.
And it was data reflecting the roughly late spring 2020, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just jump in a little bit? I work also for the PCA, but on non-point air. And at least I've talked to some other folks, and we are thinking it might be from backyard fires. We know a lot of people had a lot of fires in that chunk of time, and so which is a very real thing and has been a huge thing in the pandemic as well. So, but hi Monica too. I just I didn't want to bring you in, but if you had any more information on that too, I know my coworkers and I have talked about it a little bit as that is potentially one of the sources of that, those particulate matter, certainly.
Thank you.
Can I just say something? This is Karen. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was presented to the Minneapolis City Council by the Minnesota Department of Health at one point, and they actually gave numbers to it, and I don't have them in my head right now, but I remember the overall story is that throughout the city of Minneapolis there was a reduction of 20-some% in the air pollution index, and then in East Phillips at least it went up, and we have. I don't know. I haven't heard of the thing about the backyard fires before. We have two. That could be, but we have two major polluting industries, as you know, right there on 28th Street, the Smith Foundry, and the bituminous roadways. And just a comment. I mean, it's interesting that Abbott Northwestern is going through this, and they're trying to comply with the requirements of the law, and they're coming up with the numbers and so on. So that they can have a new permit. And I do trust that they're trying to see if they can do better. But the MPCA has allowed the two industries I just mentioned, the Smith Foundry and bituminous roadways, to operate more than 20 years without an updated permit. What in the heck? Why does the hospital, they're able to comply, and you guys are, by you guys, I don't mean you personally, I just mean MPCA is able to get them to go through this process, which is required by the state law. And it's not happening at these other two polluting industries. And I don't know what they were doing, you know, in the summer. What, I know this isn't exactly the reason why you're here, but you know, it's all connected. We breathe the air. The air doesn't just stop at, you know, Cedar or you know, 24th, or you know, what's being measured at Anderson School, and what's being measured at the interstate, the junction of Interstate 35 and 94. I mean, that air doesn't just stay there; it moves. And so I'm just, can you say anything about this? It seems like you might be one of the people on the ground who's really doing some of the work. How do we get you to get over to Bituminous and Smith and make something happen over there?
Maybe I'll add a bit more to my introductions that I neglected to. Again, I'm an engineer. I've worked for the Pollution Control Agency for about 13 years now. I'm a principal engineer with them as well, and a licensed engineer, a PE with the state. It's my understanding that for Abbott's particular project, in a way it might be appearing different, if nothing else, is that in order to do this project that they want to do, they're obligated to go through it because they need a new permit, a new kind of permit. They need to amend their current permit, I should say.
Yes. And
with Smith and or Bituminous, it's unclear to me if those facilities are actually proposing something new. I believe Cassandra Meyer is tasked with working on those particular review processes, and it is not proceeding particularly speedily. To put
20
it
some
mildly.
years, 25, 26 years is not speed, you're right.
If you're interested in some kind of update about those two, I could connect her with you to let you know what the latest and greatest is on those particular projects. But we work somewhat independently of each other. We're tasked with different projects, and so I can't say I know the latest and greatest on those. But I certainly would happy to connect you if that would help.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a note.
I mean, we know Cassandra,
Okay.
but I mean, if you can be a voice for, you know, helping raise it again, that's fine.
What'd you say?
Oh, you didn't hear me?
Different Cassandra.
Oh yeah, not Cassie, not our Cassie. I'm talking about Cassandra Meyer.
Cassandra Meyer, sorry, one of my colleagues, Cassandra Meyer.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned
I
that
know
clearly. It
Sorry,
sounds like
Cassie.
some of you are familiar with her, but I just
Yeah.
casually mentioned Cassandra, and I know there's another person named Cassandra in the same meeting. Sorry about that. But no, when I said Cassandra, I was referring to Cassandra Meyer, my colleague, an engineer with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in the Air Quality Permit Program.
I know Cassandra Meyer. She came to some epic meetings.
Okay.
I want to recognize time. We have just about 5 minutes left in our call tonight. Did folks have any more questions for Jeff or Monica or folks at the MPCA?
Well, I do have one more. Just
Please.
when you say there will be a public hearing when they get the numbers together more, I guess. What is the time frame? I mean, is a public discussion or public hearing, and then how long after that can they go ahead with their plans?
So
Or modify them if they should choose to do that.
Sure. So we're taking a pretty close look at their application materials, and things are starting to come together. Once we feel we've got a draft permit that's defensible, we would put it out on public notice, I think, as suggested earlier. I wouldn't expect that to happen before September. So we're coming up on it, but we're not there yet. With a comment period to kick off with a public meeting inside of that comment period. Again, the comment period being expected to be 45 days in length. And once that closes, we would then take in the comments that we had received and assess what kind of permit changes are necessary at that time, and then leadership would make a permitting decision. Staff generally don't make those.
And that's within, how much time do you think the leadership will be taking to make the decision?
A decision for routine permits, it's usually a week or two, depending on the amount and type of comments that are received. For your projects that receive or need a lot of adjustments or changes based on comments received, it can take significantly longer. I hate to throw out the phrase polymet. That has a lot of negative connotation associated with it, but that one took months and months to wrap up once the comment period closed. If that gives you any kind of goalpost to work around. Guidelines, I guess, are a better description for that. But essentially, it is tied pretty closely to the extent of changes that are needed to the permit.
And can I jump in really quick?
Please.
Kelly, Jeff. I just wanted to thank everyone for having us here today, and also just to mention this is not our last time to be out in community to share what we know, what we're learning, and what space we'll have for community to have more opportunities to ask questions. And so I just would ask folks if there's other community organizations, groups that you would like us to be at, please let us know so we can schedule those conversations before the public period opens.
And thank you, Say Louise. I was going to drop 2 links in the chat. Let me do that before I forget. All right, this first link is a project-specific webpage, and the second link is pertinent to air permitting in South Minneapolis, and that particular page has some other information about the cumulative levels and effects process as well, if you were not otherwise familiar with those, along with a few languages, documents in alternative languages such as Spanish and Somali. I do want to throw up my contact information again. I can find the right button. I think that one was it. For both myself and Monica Vidali, Dr. Vidali, I should mention. You can reach me anytime, 651-757-2416. And my email address is my first name dot last name, formerly jeffrey.hedman@state.mn.us. Happy to take your questions. Again, you don't need to wait for any kind of future meeting or a scheduled public meeting or anything like that. Feel free to drop me a line anytime. I would be happy to talk about the project, what's currently in it, what I'm seeing, and give you an update about that.
Thanks so much, Jeff, and thanks for being here, Monica.
Yeah.
I appreciate, I do want to acknowledge that MPCA did put together these slides basically upon request. So I do appreciate the turnaround time and getting that information together for us.
I'll also toss in that you may have seen a similar presentation done for the West Phillips community. I added in half a dozen or so extra slides for this particular group upon receipt of some of the questions we got in advance of the meeting.
Well, thanks again. I do have a couple quick announcements if Green Zone members can stay on for another minute or two. The first is...
Thank you for having us. This is Monica.
Thanks,
Bye.
Monica. Good to hear your voice. So the first is for anyone who wasn't able to make the joint Green Zone meeting on June 29th. I was going to give a quick overview, but I think everyone who's here was able to attend. So I'll just give a quick update instead, which is that I have met with a couple more folks at the city, including Jenny Lansing, who was at that meeting talking about air monitoring. And Jenny has also been talking with folks at the MPCA, including Monica, about collaborating on a community air monitoring project. And so we're just at the beginning phases of like generating the idea of what would be monitored and where would the monitors be and who would be collecting the information. But the general goal is that it would be as community led and community or like citizen science participatory as possible. So basically what we're doing now is trying to find out who would be interested in participating in that project. And participation could include anything from helping to determine, again, any of those things I mentioned, what's monitored, where the monitors go, and helping engage other people in the process. Or it could just be as simple as staying informed as conversations happen and decisions are made. So if you're interested, let me know. I think what we would be hoping is to get a meeting together later in August, probably virtual, just for anyone who is interested to just start brainstorming and ideating and things like that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So would it be like, because even though I live here and I'm part of the groups and I'm fighting for, better air and water, everything, it's like, is it going to be as simple as what the hell is in our air and how it affects us personally and how much of it is in the air?
It could be as simple as that, yeah. I think that the goals are to be determined. We want the community members to determine what the goals of the monitoring would be.
Because you want the community to really understand what it is that's going on and not having all these big words used and, it's just particulate matter. You could just, it's what is that? I mean, what particulate matter of what? And
right.
What is that what doing to us?
Right. No, and that's such a great point, Cassie. And also part of this, that again, and like there's been like 2 conversations internally, but an idea around with the citizen science that community members would actually be educating other community members and educating the city and the state. So like you would be, let's say you have a monitor, you would be observing like what's going on in your neighborhood when that monitor spikes. Like was your neighbor mowing with a diesel lawnmower, or did a truck sit and idle in front of your house, or and then being able to present that information to educate your own community members and also the city and the state. So there would be information and kind of, I don't know what term you'd want to use, but like we would like the city and state folks would help community members understand what that information is so that you could like turn it into more understandable language.
Thank you.
So thanks, Karen, for mentioning that. So yeah, let me know now. I'll also be sending out emails about it. I just wanted to mention it.
I'd be interested.
Okay.
Some way or another.
Yeah. Another thing that will be coming up soon is I think we're getting the go-ahead to give the presentation on the Green Zone work plan to City Council. So, only a year and a half late, no big deal. But I was hoping I could get some of you to review what we're putting together. I've got a draft that I can share around. And also ask, like, does somebody want to co-present with me? Will be likely, if we go within the next month, it'll be virtual. So I would recommend having a familiarity with Teams because that's the platform it's going to be on. If we wait longer, it could be in person, but I think we want to be conscious of the timing. I submitted a budget request through the budget process. And so we would want this to go in front of City Council to kind of like remind them, like, what is the green zones? What are we working on? Like, what are all the great things we've been doing and where we want the money? So that's another thing that I wanted to throw out there. If anyone would be interested and willing to look at the presentation and or present sometime in the next month or so.
Yeah, I'd be interested in being a part of that.
I'll be there to support you.
And I think I have one more. Oh, and then for our next Southside Green Zone meeting, so I haven't heard anyone say that in general, the first Wednesday of the month won't work. Cassie, I know your birthday is our next potential meeting on September 1st. But I think topic areas for that meeting, I've had some conversations with Neighborhood Development Council, who operates Midtown Global Market, is planning to do a bunch of development of the impacted sites from the uprising around Chicago and Lake. And then the Graves Foundation also, they've both seen the development criteria that the Green Zones drafted, and are willing to come to a Green Zone meeting and talk about what their plans are for development at this point. So if folks are interested in that, I can tee them up for presentations for September 1st.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Karen.
So we didn't consider the resolution because we didn't have a quorum, but I'm wondering if we might have like just I don't know who's left. I mean, we've lost a couple people as well, but some sort of sense of who is here about the meaning of that resolution. I mean, we're running into a deadline. You know, the 5th of August, the city council is going to potentially decide whether or not they're going to do what that resolution talks about, which is either continue the city's project to the Hiawatha project, or continue to pause it like they are right now and support the neighborhood's community development project. So I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating not to be able to. Is there a way we can have this vote electronically, separately, you know, or something? I don't know. It's just, I know we did do that once a long time ago, a couple of years ago, I think, on a different topic.
Yeah, we're not allowed to have email votes. This is like virtual meetings are the closest we can have for online votes. We have to be able to have a voice vote, whether in person or virtual. So yeah.
Do we all have to hear that voice vote, or can you ask everyone, like would you be able to call people?
Oh, no, yeah, it has to be like in
Well,
a public
meeting. You know, you didn't say, you just said a voice vote.
Yeah, no. It's a great question, but yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you all have to be together and have the voice vote.
I mean, we all know what it is.
I know, yeah.
Cassandra,
I don't know, Karen, if it would be helpful to resubmit like the letters that the Southside Green Zone has approved in the past, because I know there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't send those.
I mean, you can record it, you know, and then share it with everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think we had once talked about, and didn't we once have an emergency meeting because we lacked a quorum and we wanted to do something like this? I mean, is that something people would be up for? I'm just worried we're running out of time. You know, August 5th could be the last you'll hear of opening to stop.
I'd be willing, even if it was for just like 10 minutes, even during my work day, you know, I could take a quick break. If you know, if whatever works for anyone, I just let me know and I'll make sure I take my break time on that time. I just wouldn't be able to have anything over 30 minutes during my work day.
Yeah. Well, if everybody was alerted to it ahead of time and we just said, you know, we got 15 minutes, please be prepared to vote. You know, it's an emergency meeting because we are in an emergency time. This is the second meeting that we haven't had a quorum when we had the resolution before us. So I'm just concerned that might send a different kind of message.
Yeah, we can certainly try, but my concern is similar, Karen. Like, we haven't had a quorum for Southside Green Zone in months because of the low number of people, and then scheduling.
How many do we need again?
We need 9, and there are currently 12 members.
We need 9.
It would.
Say that again.
It would be easy for Vivi too during the day, Monday through Wednesday.
Okay.
Well, Tuesday through Friday, actually. Let me rephrase that. Tuesday through Friday. Sorry, guys, that's my dog with his new big toy.
I think the dog is supporting this discussion. That's fair.
Are we in quorum right now, or are we missing one person?
No.
No, the most we got to tonight was 7.
And we need how many?
9.
So we were too short. Well, I'm, Joan is usually a very faithful attendee. I don't know what happened with her, and it sounded like Jose Luis came on later, or at least, I don't know if you're still there, Jose Luis, but oh yeah, I think you are. Was he counted as part of the quorum?
Yeah, Jose Luis was number 7.
So okay, so who are we missing besides that?
We're
might be.
missing Jason, who I haven't heard from since he reapplied in the spring. We're missing Itisha, who I know is very busy and has not responded to my text messages to do his oath of office. Blake was on vacation. Normally he would be available. Mahugo, I didn't hear anything from for tonight, but she has been at our last couple of meetings. Vivi is working. Joan, I didn't hear anything from. So normally I think we would potentially have Atisha, Blake, Mahubo, and Joan in addition to those others who are here.
I mean, summer's hard. I think Joan is up north right now.
Oh, okay.
Probably fighting the fight, and Vivi's door knocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the boards and commission structure doesn't allow for work to get done terribly easily.
Well, could we ask Kelly to try just to put something together on an emergency basis? Maybe if we could find out when Joan will get back. And maybe you could become, you thought maybe, Cassie, so even if we lost.
I can definitely propose it.
I mean, let's just try, and if it doesn't work, then we've at least tried one more time.
Yeah. Because I mean, other things we wanted to do tonight, like, is elect new leadership, so it doesn't keep falling on Kosar and Kosar and Samara to hold all of the meeting scheduling and planning.
Yeah.
Again, that's another thing that we can't do without a quorum.
Yeah.
Does Jeffrey have a question? Or is that up from earlier?
I have a statement to offer. I think the group's kind of moved beyond it. But briefly discussed just a few moments ago was the possibility of an air monitoring project. I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents that issue was actually raised at a meeting like this with the West Phillips community earlier. I think it was this month, and it was a request to look more into traffic related impacts. And so I just wanted to put the plug in for these kinds of meetings, maybe again topical with your current discussion, that they matter. And then if you have requests or concerns, venues like this are great to share with not just my agency, but you talked to transportation earlier, and that these kinds of meetings are very important. Clearly you're all here, so I'm preaching the choir. But again, that kind of work is hard for us to look at because we're the state. We got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. Certainly South Minneapolis is a very important one, and we're looking closely at it. But there's a lot of other places to look too. So if you can help us identify specific concerns that you have, like I think the previous gentleman did at the West Phillips community meeting, we can look a little closer in some instances. It's hard to make promises like that in advance without doing some of the homework for it to see what resources are available that we can bring to bear. But still, the general statement, these are super important meetings to have. That's all I had to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I'm glad you stayed on.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for your extra 15 minutes. I really appreciate it. I'll try to reach out to everybody tomorrow and see if we can get an emergency meeting scheduled for either the end of this week or early next week.
Thank you, Kelly. You've been doing a great job. You really have.
Noontime would work for me for a break. If middle of the day worked better for folks than evenings. So.
All right, we'll see. I'll throw out either like noon or 6 for a quick 15-minute. See
Okay,
what works. Okay.
thank you. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Stay cool.